Let's take a look at the goals of organizational behavior. Organizational behavior is the study of actions that affect performance in the workplace. The goal of OB theorists is to understand, explain, predict, and influence behavior to improve performance. Interpersonal skills, our ability to get along with others, are important to success. How we behave with others determines our OB skills, which companies value. Foundations include our thoughts, self-confidence, self-esteem, personality, perception, and attitudes. You can only observe individual actions and try to explain and predict their behavior based on your understanding of these foundations. It's about reading people. Relationships are great, but they're challenging and OB skills will help you. Self-esteem is about your overall view of yourself. Our self-esteem clearly affects our behavior. We're not born with high or low self-esteem. It's influenced by our past experience and our thoughts of self-confidence and self-doubt. Self-confidence is about believing you can do specific tasks. It's also called self-efficacy and self-concept. It's an I can do this attitude and is typically believed to be a quality of leadership. Think of the last time you told yourself something critical or negative. Then think of the last time you thought of a compliment or positive thought. We tend to have too many negative thoughts and think about them over and over again. Optimism helps us overcome self-doubt. It's the opposite of pessimism, and it's often considered to be a personality trait. Grateful people are happier, healthier, and less stressed. Ungrateful people tend to be dissatisfied with what they do have and are never satisfied because no matter how much they get, it's never enough. The way to improve your self-confidence and self-esteem is to change your thoughts through positive self-talk. Self-talk is a subset of thinking in which you make comments, set reminders, and give yourself advice. You need to practice a new thought over and over again. Personality is based on genetics and environmental factors. Your basic personality is developed by age 5. Thus, making parents and child care providers important in early years of life, but your personality does change as you age. You can speed up the change, but it isn't easy and it takes work. Our personality influences the types of careers we choose, such as being people-oriented like social workers and teachers, or task-oriented like accountants and computer programmers. Personality is a predictor of job performance. Here are some of the single traits that make up one's personality. Locus of control is a trait that lies on a continuum between believing that control over one's destiny is external and believing that it's internal. Externalizers believe they have no control over their fate and that their behavior has little to do with their performance. Internalizers believe that they control their fate and that their behavior has a direct effect on their performance. They tend to have high self-esteem and self-confidence. Risk propensity lies on a continuum from risk-taking to risk-avoiding. Entrepreneurs have different personality traits and characteristics. It takes a lot of self-confidence and self-control, positive thoughts, emotions, gratitude, and avoiding harmful habits to become an entrepreneur. Machiavellianism is a trait based on the belief that ends can justify the means and power should be used to reach desired ends. High mocks play a self-interest role, and their unethical behavior often can hurt others. The use of the Big Five personality dimensions puts multiple traits together to form what's often called a personality profile. It's said that all individual traits can be placed in one of the 5 dimensions. The Big Five is also called the 5-factor model and has an abbreviation of OCEAN. Extroversion is measured along a continuum between extrovert and introvert. Extroverts tend to be social, talkative, and assertive, and willing to take charge. Introverts tend to be less social, non-assertive, and less willing to take charge. Agreeable people are considered to be nice and good-natured, cooperative, flexible, polite, tolerant, forgiving, and trusting. Disagreeable people are the opposite, making them difficult to work with. Emotionalism is on a continuum between emotional stability and instability. Emotionally stable people are calm and in control of their behavior. They are secure and positive. Unstable people are neurotics, who are angry, depressed, anxious, nervous, insecure, and excitable. They can get out of control and display their emotions negatively. The conscientiousness continuum goes between responsible or dependable and irresponsible or undependable. Also called open to experience, openness lies in a continuum between a willingness to try new things and not being willing to do so. Successful leaders are open to change. Our personality affects how we perceive things as well as our attitudes and behavior. Perception refers to a person's interpretation of reality. It's important to realize that perceptions, right or wrong, affect behavior and performance because behavior is the product or is based on perception. Perception is the process of organizing and interpreting information from our environment. No two people ever perceive and thus ever experience anything exactly the same way. Your thoughts reveal the perception you have of yourself, which in turn affects your behavior. A second factor that influences the perception process is the information available from the external environment. Organizational practices influence employee perceptions of management and the firm. We make attributions when we infer causes about particular outcomes, which affects behavior. Attribution is the process of determining the reason for someone's behavior. Now let's look at a more external focus of organizational behavior topics, including power, organizational politics, negotiation, conflict, and stress. Whether you have a positive or negative attitude towards power and organizational politics, they're a reality of organizational life that is important to performance. For our purposes, power is the ability to influence others' behavior. Politics is the process of gaining and using power. Power and politics are often viewed negatively because some people abuse them using unethical behavior. But power and politics, in and of themselves, are neither good or bad. It's how they're used. Managers need ethical power and politics to meet organizational objectives. The fundamental concept in social science is power, in the same way energy is the fundamental concept in physics. Let's admit it, we all have a desire for influence, as we try to influence people at work and off the job to get what we want every day. A positive way to view politics is to realize that it's simply a medium of exchange. Like money, it's simply a means of getting what we want, meeting objectives. In an organization, politics is the medium of exchange. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. Being a manager gives you reward and legitimate power, but you can also give praise. To increase your referent power, develop your interpersonal skills and make efforts to gain others' confidence and trust. To increase your information power, know what's going on in the organization, and serving on committees gives you a chance to increase both information and connection power. To increase your expert power, volunteer to be the first to learn something new. Like power, politics can be abused, so it must be used to help the organization. The amount and importance of politics vary from organization to organization. However, larger organizations tend to be more political, and the higher level of management, the more important politics becomes. You cannot meet your objectives without the help of others, so you need to use political skills. Networking is the process of developing relationships for career building and socializing. It's about developing mutually beneficial relationships. Successful managers spend more time networking than do average managers. Reciprocity involves the mutual exchange of favors and privileges to accomplish objectives. The process of reciprocity is also referred to as social exchange theory. Managers and employees and colleagues form relationships that have mutual obligation and reciprocity. A coalition is a network of alliances that help achieve an objective. Reciprocity is used to achieve ongoing objectives, whereas coalitions are developed for achieving a specific one. Learn the organizational culture and find out what it takes to succeed in your job and to advance, and don't be afraid to ask. Learn the power players, your boss. Find out who those people are in your organization and find opportunities to get them to know them using political behavior. Don't surprise your boss if you're having a work problem, such as being behind schedule. Never wait until the deadline to tell your boss. Be a team player, supporting your group or team by taking responsibility for shared goals. Stay tuned to the grapevine to find out what's going on. It can help if you learn the organizational culture and identify key players to include in your coalition. Resolve conflicts. Following the preceding guidelines can help you avoid a political fight. Admit mistakes and apologize. We all make mistakes, so admit them. An apology can go a long way in maintaining and repairing damaged relationships. You have to negotiate in both your personal and professional life. Negotiating is a process in which two or more parties in conflict attempt to come to an agreement. If there's a set take it or leave it deal, such as retail prices, there's no negotiation. Also, not all negotiations end in an agreement. Negotiation is often a zero-sum game in which one party's gain is another party's loss. Not everyone is born a great negotiator, but the skill can be developed. Following the steps in the negotiation process can help you develop your negotiation skills. The negotiation process has 3, possibly 4 steps: plan, negotiate, possibly postpone, and finally come to an agreement or no agreement. Plan the negotiation. Success or failure in negotiating is usually based on preparation. Planning has 4 steps. Research the other party or parties to the negotiation. Try to find out what the other parties want, what they will and will not be willing to give up, and what they expect in return. Set objectives. Based on your research, what can you expect? What's your objective? You have to identify the one thing you must come away with. Try to develop options and trade-offs. In some negotiating situations, you may find that you're in a position of power to achieve your target objective. Anticipate questions and objections and prepare answers. Very likely, the other party to negotiations will want to answer the unasked question, "What's in it for me?" When there doesn't seem to be any progress, it may be wise to postpone negotiations. If the other party is postponing, you can try to create a sense of urgency. If you want to postpone, the other party may try to create urgency. If you're not satisfied with the deal or want to shop around, tell the other party you want to think about it. Once you've come to an agreement, put things in writing, if appropriate. It's common to follow up on an agreement with a letter or email of thanks that restates the agreement. There will be times when you simply will be unable to come to an agreement. If you can't close a deal, analyze the situation and try to determine how you can improve in the future. A conflict exists whenever people are in disagreement and opposition. You're in conflict when you get aggravated at someone or when someone does something that bothers you, and conflict is part of every relationship and every social system. All human relations rely on the psychological contract because people want to have their expectations met. The psychological contract is composed of the implicit expectations of each party. Conflict arises when the psychological contract is broken, which happens for two primary reasons. We fail to make explicit our own expectations and fail to inquire into the expectations of others. We assume that others have the same expectations that we hold. People often think of a conflict as fighting and view it negatively, which it can be. However, conflict can be positive or negative. Conflict of ideas generally leads to changes that improve performance. This is called functional conflict. Functional conflict exists when disagreement and opposition support the achievement of organizational objectives. Functional conflict can decrease complacency and reveal inefficiency. Dysfunctional conflict is often personal and can bring about many negative outcomes within an organization, including damaged relationships, decreased productivity, revenge, avoidance, and aggression. The longer you wait to deal with conflict, the harder it is to keep it from becoming dysfunctional. When you're faced with conflict, you have 5 conflict management styles to choose from. The 5 styles, along with concern for your own and others' needs, passive, aggressive, and assertive behavior, and win-lose combinations. Some advantages and disadvantages of the appropriate use of each conflict style, there's no one best style, remember, are also discussed. Also, realize that personality affects how people respond to conflict. Agreeable personality types are more willing to collaborate, whereas narcissists are more likely to use force to get their way. The avoiding conflict style, where users attempt to passively ignore conflict rather than resolve it. When you avoid a conflict, you're being unassertive and uncooperative. Accommodating conflict style. Users attempt to resolve conflict by passively giving in to the opposing side. When you use this style, you're being unassertive but cooperative. Forcing conflict style. Users attempt to resolve conflict by using aggressive behavior to get their own way. Narcissists use this style. You're uncooperative and aggressive. You do whatever it takes to satisfy your own needs. Users of the negotiating conflict style, also called the compromising conflict style, attempt to resolve conflict through assertive give-and-take concessions. When you use negotiating style, you're moderate in assertiveness and cooperation. Compromise may lead to counterproductive results such as suboptimum decisions. An overuse of this style leads to game playing in which people ask for twice as much as they need in order to get what they want. Users of the collaborating conflict style, also called the problem-solving style, assertively attempt to resolve conflict by working together with the other person to find a solution acceptable to all parties. Learn how to resolve conflicts using this collaborative style. An initiator is a person who confronts another person in order to resolve a conflict. The conflict can be of ideas or personal. Let's face it, some people do things that annoy us. Your objective should be to change the specific behavior, which may be your own, without hurting your relationship. The collaborative conflict resolution model is an evidence-based or EBM that can help you meet the objective of changing behavior by effectively initiating a conflict resolution. The first step is to state the problem in terms of behaviors, consequences, and feelings in a BCF statement. The BCF statement describes a conflict in terms of behaviors, consequences, and feelings in a way that maintains ownership of the problem. Don't confront people because you don't like their personality. You're not going to change it. There's really no such thing as a personality conflict. It's about specific things that people do and say that bother you, so construct a short BCF statement. After planning your BCF statement, think of some possible solutions you might suggest in step 3. Be sure that your ideas take into consideration the other person's point of view. Put yourself in his or her position. Use empathy. Get the other person to acknowledge the problem or conflict. After stating your BCF, let the other person respond. If the other person doesn't understand or acknowledge the problem, repeat your statement in different terms if necessary. Ask for and/or present alternative resolutions to the conflict. Next, ask the person how the conflict might be resolved. If they acknowledge the problem but seem unwilling to resolve it, appeal to common goals. Come to an agreement. Determine what specific actions you'll take to resolve the conflict. Perhaps the person will agree not to smoke in your presence now that he or she knows that it affects you. Clearly state whatever actions each of you agree to. In the role of responder, you have a responsibility to contribute to successful conflict resolution. Frequently, parties in a conflict cannot resolve their dispute alone. In these cases, a mediator may be used. A mediator is a neutral third party who helps to resolve a conflict. As a manager, you might be called upon to serve as a mediator between employees. In this case, remember that you should be a mediator, not a judge. Get the employees to resolve the conflict themselves if possible. When bringing conflicting employees together, focus on how the conflict is affecting their work. Discuss the issues by addressing specific behavior, not personalities. If the conflict cannot be resolved by mediation, an arbitrator may be used. An arbitrator is a neutral third party who resolves a conflict by making a binding decision. The arbitrator is like a judge whose decision must be followed. Arbitration should be kept to a minimum as it's not a collaborative conflict style. Stress is the body's reaction to environmental demands. This reaction can be emotional or physical. Stress levels are on a continuum from high to low. But stress is an individual perception matter. Some people are better at handling stress than others. In the same situation, one person may be very comfortable and stress-free, while another is stressed out. With no or low stress, people tend to just take it easy and waste time, and performance is lower, which is dysfunctional. At optimum levels of stress, like a deadline, it's functional because it helps improve performance. However, beyond a certain point, stress stops being helpful and becomes dysfunctional because it hurts performance. It can also lead to burnout, a constant lack of interest and motivation to perform one's job. Burnout can cause mental and physical health problems. Stress management is the process of eliminating or reducing stress. Many organizations today are making stress a priority through training employees in stress management because it improves the bottom line. Here are a few stress management techniques you can use to decrease stress. Generally, people with good time management skills experience less job-related stress. It's important that you relax to help yourself unwind. Finding a hobby or activity you enjoy, taking a vacation, laughing, and performing relaxation exercises are all ways you can relax. A good night's sleep makes you more productive. Good health is essential to everyone's performance, and nutrition is a major factor. Staying fit can reduce the production of stress hormones. Physical exercise is an excellent way to improve health while releasing stress. People with optimistic personalities and attitudes generally have less stress than pessimists. As discussed, you become what you think, and you can be more productive, positive, and optimistic. Talking to others in a support network can help reduce stress. Develop a network of family, friends, and peers that you can go to for help with your problems. Don't be a whiner that people want to avoid. You don't need to use all the stress management techniques to help deal with your stress. Select some that you enjoy and make them a habit.